Hello everyone, my name is Pooja and today I am going to discuss on the topic of photography. Firstly, we will know that what is photography. Photography is the art, application, practice of creating durable images by recording light or electromagnetic radiation either electronically by means of any image sensor or chemically by means of a light sensitive material such as photographic film. It is employed in many fields of science, manufacturing, and business, as well as its more direct uses for art, film, and video production, recreational purposes, hobbies, and mass communication. Typically, a lens is used to focus the light reflected or emitted from object into a visual images on the light sensitive surface inside camera during a time exposure when electronic image sensor. This produces an sorry, electrical charges at each pixel, which is electronically processed and stored in a digital image file for subsequent display or processing. The result with photographic imaging is an invisible latent image which is latter chemically developed into a visual image, either negative or positive, depending on the purpose of photographic material and the method of processing. A negative image on a film is traditionally used to photographically create a positive image on a paper base known as a print either by using an enlarge or by contact printing. Photography is the result of combining several technical discoveries relating to seeing an image and capturing the image. The discovery of the camera oscura that provides an image of a scene dates back to ancient China. Greek mathematician Aristotle and Euclid independently described a camera oscura in the 5th and 4th century BC. In the 6th century CE, Byzantine mathematician Elymas of Tralles used a type of camera obscura in his experiment. The Arab physicist Al-Hayat also invented a camera obscura as well as the first true phenol camera. The invention of camera has been tracked back to the world of Al-Hayat, while the effects of a single light passing through a phenol had been discovered earlier. He gave the first correct analysis of a camera obscura, including the first geometrical and quantitative descriptions of the phenomenon, and was the first to use a green screen in a dark room so that an image from an side of a hole in the surface could be projected onto a screen on the other side. He also first understood the relationship between the focal point and the phenol, and formed early experiments with after images laying the foundation for the images of photography in 19th century. Leonardo da Vinci mentioned natural camera oscura that was found by dark caves on the edge of sunlit valleys. A hole in the cave wall will act as a phenol camera and a projector literally reversed upside down image on a piece of paper. Resonance painters use the camera oscura, which is in fact gives the optical rendering in color that dominates the Western art. It is a box with a hole in it which allows light to go through and create an image onto the piece of paper. The birth of photography was the considered with inventing means to capture and keep the image produced by camera oscura. Albertus Magnus discovered silver nitrate and George Firkus discovered silver chloride, and the techniques discovered in Al-Hayat books of optics are capable of producing primitive photographs using medieval material. Choosing the best camera, not a once in a lifetime purchase anymore. Select one which can do the job you want today as per your requirement. Some kinds of cameras do. Some kinds of think better more easily, that is sports photography versus close portraits. Cameras, web cameras, mobile cameras, point and shoot cameras, advanced consumer model, promuser DSLR models, professional cameras. Prime versus zoom. The first thing you need to understand is the difference between prime and zoom lenses. Prime lenses are called fixed lenses because the focal length of a prime lenses is fixed, meaning you can't zoom in, zoom out. You can only shoot for a single angle of a view. If you want to add or move certain elements for a picture, you will have to literally move yourself closer or farther away from your subject. A zoom lens, or on the other hand, refers to the lens that has a variable focal length, meaning you can zoom in and zoom out at will. With a zoom lens, you can certainly remain in the same position, but zoom in and zoom out change the content of the photo. There are pros and cons to both prime and zoom lenses. This usually refers to the lenses with focal length between 17 mm and 40 mm. Wide-angle lenses provide you a broad view of the scene before you. This makes the idea of photographing landscapes, small interior places that you want to look larger. Even say concert where you are very close to your subject, street photography, environmental portraits that also includes your subject surroundings. The biggest downside of wide-angle lenses is that can make them look larger, especially elements that are close to your lenses. This makes lens less than an ideal choice for portraiture since they can be unflattering to your subject. Normal and standard lens. Lens with a focal length of 40 mm to 60 mm considered normal lenses because they tend to replicate accurately what the naked human eye sees. They do not have much distortion as a wide-angle lenses, but they are still wide-range enough to replicate an peripheral version of human eyes. Because these sub-qualities, normal lenses are great for photographing portraits, creating precious conceptions, street photography, documentary photography project. This is very beautiful and flexible lenses. When asked which single lens they would choose if they could have one, many professional photographers answers are my normal lenses. Telephoto camera lenses. Any lenses with a focal length of 70 mm and longer in a photo lenses. These lenses produce the least distortion, making them another excellent choice for flattering portraits. These are also extremely useful in situations where you can't go too close to your subject, photographing a sport event or while on a safari. For example, the downside of the lenses is their size and weight. They tend to be quite heavy, and the fact that you can't photograph subjects that are close to you. Especially cameras lenses, micro fiche lenses. Micro lenses are used to create extremely close-up images, typically of very small subjects such as flower and insect. Macro lenses can produce a life size or even larger than a life-size scale image of tiny subject. They also allow you to get closer to your subject than a typical lenses while such retain sharp focus. A PC lenses is ultra wide angle lenses tend to have about a 180-degree field vision. The effect you achieve with this lens makes it seem like you are seeing the world from inside a fishbowl, hence they call fisheye. Resolution Resolutions are the pin size of a camera and its quality. Photography technical anti-blur, anti-shake, image stabilization, vibration reduction. A technology that stabilizes the lens to effective reduce blur due to camera shake. From Hictogram basic tutorial is underexposed. First picture describes the underexposed image. Second image describes the well-exposed image, where the picture clarity is much more clear than the underexposed, and the third image is overexposed, where the picture is not very clear and it is blurred. Metering: how the camera measures the amount of light available to expose a pixel. Light-weighted reading are taken at various parts of the picture with a special emphasis for the certain spot. Reading are taken at a specific point. Each camera manufacturer has its own variations. The ability to adjust camera based on it as reference color to give white balance: the ability to adjust colors based on white as a reference color given as a true a white as possible. All other colors are connected accordingly. Auto WB (EWB): the camera determines and selects the correct color temperature for white. White balance: some preset white balance settings are daylight, cloudy, tungsten, and fluorescent. Aperture: depth of field, shutter speed, ISO, noise. Aperture: a hole or an opening through which light travels. It causes variation in the depth of the field within the images. You can see in the image, aperture is 1 point, the shutter is 1 by 500, ISO 100, and distance is 3 feet, is not as clear as the picture in the middle where aperture is 4, shutter is 1 by 125, ISO 100, and distance is 3 feet. That is also blur, and compared to the third picture where aperture is 8, shutter is 1 by 40, ISO 125, distance is 3 feet, are much more clear than the other two pictures. These images also show the same thing, where aperture is 8, shutter is 1 by 60, ISO is 100, and distance is 5 feet and 3 feet. 3 feet is much more clear than the 5 feet. You can see same in the both of the images, where the second picture with the aperture f8, shutter 1 by 60, 1 by 160, ISO 100, distance 1.5 feet is much more closer, and the background is blurred than the other picture. Shutter speed: amount of time the picture is exposed. Short, fast shutter speed, long, slow shutter speed. You can see the speed of the shutter and the clearance of the images. And the 500. Result of the various shuttering speed. See, 1 by 500 is much more clearer than the other images. These are the shutter images. Fast shutter image. Which shutter image is best? The last shutter speed is much more best than the other three pictures. ISO 100. ISO shutter priority. Shutter priority allows you to decide the shutter speed. For example, fast at 1 by 500 seconds for stop action photography, or slow at 2 seconds for night photography, and the camera decides the best aperture. Aperture priority allows you to choose your aperture. For example, large at f.19 for portrait of a small at f.16 for the landscape. Manual. You have complete creativity control in selecting both the shutter aperture. Auto. All the digital cameras usually have an auto mode. The camera decides for the best shutter speed in a magic setting. Landscape photography. Primary function is allow a large depth of field. Landscape mode tells the camera to default to a large depth of field. Small aperture f16. Portrait. This mode is not well suited for full-length portrait or a group of people. Portrait mode tells the camera to default to a small depth of field. Sport action photography tells the cameras to the depth it's setting towards capturing the image fast. This is done by increasing shutter speed, increasing ISO. Night photography. It is proceed slow down the shutter speed to allow a lot of light into the camera. Both the foreground and the background of the image are properly exposed. Very used in taking low light image where you do not want the background to be the black. Exchangeable image field data is a record of what camera settings were used to take photographs. ASI data stores information like camera mode, exposure, aperture, ISO, what camera mode was used. To interpret this ASI data, you will need an ASI viewer. There are many ways to go out this. Your image processing program should provide that functionality within the program. For beginners, reading an image, ASI data can be a useful learning tool. Night photography. Take a number of shots at different shutter speed, aperture angles. Ensure your LCD brightness is set to normal, not bright for a true representing of your recorded image. A good aperture to start with is f4.0 or f5.6 for the greatest depth of field. And adjust shutter speed up or down till you are satisfied with the result. Always bring and use a tripod. It's quite common to have exposure of light second or more during nighttime photography. Bring along a flashlight or rocket flashlight, essential when you are doing photography at night. Minimalistic photography. Minimalistic photos is creating empty spaces in the photograph. The eye of the person looking at the image can't help but be drawn to the element of the image you have taken and the subject. What makes your subject the strongest point of your photo, even though it might take up only a small part of overall image. When I'm attempting to take a show with minimalistic feel to it, I keep those well in mind. Pick subjects wisely, experiment with color, use depth of field, crop out distortion, zoom in and zoom out. See, here is the example. Evolution of camera. 19th century camera studio standing on a tripod and using plates. Box cameras, one of the first mass-produced pocket camera using film. Compact Kodak folding cameras from 1922. Hilker 2, one of the first 135 film cameras in 1932. Concax of 1949, the first pentaprism SLR. Polaroid color pack 18 stand cameras from 1975. Digital camera Canon i6 class in 2000. Nikon D1, the first digital SLR used in journalism and sports photography since 2000. Smartphone with built cameras spread private images globally in 2010. Thank you so much for listening.